Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Make sure to like and subscribe and everything, all the usual stuff before we get started. I figured since I basically released at this point like my worst performing video with the Green Day Uno Dos Tre, I'm like, hey, let's just do another video of it and just see how it does. So I've been obviously listening to a lot of Green Day just in preparation and just kind of regaining some interest with the band just while doing the Uno Dos Tre album and everything. And I figured let's do a tier list, the official definitive tier list. So let me go ahead and switch this over and we'll get started. Okay, so here's what we got here. We've got everything basically they've released. The only albums I didn't include were like any like live albums or I don't even remember what it was called, but in 2020 they released like that covers album. So I don't really care about talking about those. Probably the only like real true outlier that I added in here was Shenanigans, which is just basically a collection of a bunch of B-sides for the most part and everything. But I figured, hey, they still, I think it should count in some way. So we got usual tier list S through F. I'm going to try to use the S and the Fs pretty sparingly, really only for the best of the best in the actual, worst of the worst, I guess. So let's go ahead and just jump right in and start with 39 Smooth and Slappy Hours, I guess, is both of those kind of like EPs thrown together. Honestly, this album kind of holds up, I guess, like in its own way. Obviously, the band was like still like in high school basically when they were writing these and everything, and it's got definitely like local music DIY kind of written all over it. But if you take that into account, it's really not that bad. You hear kind of a lot of the earlier roots of the kind of music they were going to be writing like later on throughout the decade of the 90s in particular. So yeah, I don't hate it. It's not really an album that I really go out and listen to just like on my own. But kind of revisiting it for the sake of this video, it's kind of like, yeah, this isn't terrible. Like I said, the band was like really young. There's nothing like really bad with it. You can hear a lot of the potential of all the kind of music they're going to have coming out later on. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put it in C. And I'm going to say basically the same types of things with Kerplunk. I think Kerplunk is, it's them kind of getting a little more polished, but still not quite at the levels of like them actually signing on to Reprise Records and with Dookie coming out and everything. The biggest example of that is when you listen to the Kerplunk's version of Welcome to Paradise versus Dookie's version, and you can hear like, okay, wow, yeah, like the Dookie version sounds like way better. And I know there's like this weird thing about like, oh, well, punk music sounds better when it's really rough and everything. And it's like, well, I think you can still sound like authentic and also have some better production elements to it. I think overall, just this album's, again, they're super young and they're not all that experienced musicians and writers, I guess, but it's a little sloppy in parts. And obviously as they tune in even further when they go on to release Dookie, you're going to see a huge difference. So I'll kind of put it in C. If they came out with something like this today, I mean, I would be like, what the heck is wrong? But the fact that, so early in their career and just them being so young, I think it's all right. Okay, next, of course, we have Dookie, and without a shadow of a doubt, it has to go into S tier. This is just probably one of like the greatest pop punk or punk rock, skate punk, however you want to put it, just albums ever. It's one of my favorite albums just of all time. I can go back to this album at any time and listen to it from front to back and just never be bored. And it's one of those albums where it's like I have like a specific memory of something just like in my childhood with all of the songs, basically. So, there's a lot of nostalgia factor with it for me. But yeah, I mean, these are all just like so great. I mean, it's definitely not just a singles album. I mean, this whole thing just has continued to stand the test of time. I will say Welcome to Paradise is probably still like maybe like my favorite Green Day song of all time. But there's really like no misses on here. If I had to pick like the weakest song, I would maybe go with She. It's not bad, but it kind of sounds like one of those songs where it was written because they just needed another single kind of thing. And so I don't know. That's just kind of the vibe I get. But you get a 7 out of 10 song filled with other 8, 9, and 10 out of 10 songs. There's really no complaining. So yeah, Dookie is great. One of the first albums I even ever owned, and the album that really got me into just my own independent musical journey, basically. So I was like 10 or something when I got this album. So yeah, everything's been said about it. We all know there's really should be no debate on this album being an S tier. So we'll go ahead and move on to Insomniac. Now, this is a weird album because it kind of feels like I guess, like rushed. It feels like it just came out too soon. I mean, it did only come out like a year after Dookie, basically. So it almost feels like B-sides a bit from Dookie. It does stand on its own in some parts. I mean, Geek Stink Breath is actually a really good song. And of course, the Brain Stew going into Jaded, and just Brain Stew in general. It's kind of the first time you heard like a slower song. Not that it's like a ballad, but just the more slower tempo thing. So they did try a few new things, but overall, there's not a ton that's super memorable with it. And aside from like those couple singles, I don't think it's not really one that people really go back to as much. It's kind of like if you think of Green Day in like the mid 90s, you're almost always going to think of Dookie. You're not really going to think of Insomniac. So yeah, like I said, I mean, it's okay. There's just not a ton going for it aside from, a few of the singles going on. So let's, I guess I'll put it in C also. Why not? We'll just go with it. Okay. Now we have Nimrod, and I think Nimrod honestly might be Green Day's most underrated album. I hadn't listened to this in quite a while, and I was listening to it this week, and I was like, wow, there's actually like a lot of good songs in here, and like ones that I forgot were on this album in particular. Of course, Time of Your Life basically kind of overshadows this entire album, which is a huge shame because I think there's a lot to revisit, and there's a lot of really good written tracks. This is kind of them now leaving their old, skate punk, more rough around the edges kind of songs, and kind of growing up a bit, I guess, and writing things a little more poppy and more mainstream and everything. But it's definitely not one of those, like, it's totally not like a sellout album or anything. Yeah, and it kind of starts to go in the direction of, you have like your more poppy punk, I guess, more pop tracks, but then they still lay you in with some like really good kind of, I guess, old school Green Day songs. Like Platypus is totally my favorite song on the album. One of the fastest songs they've ever written. So it's kind of, and then like Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, like the acoustic ballad. So it's kind of one of those, like, it's a mix of a few different things. It's not just one identity the whole way through, like Dookie and, well, I mean, basically all their albums beforehand. And I think if they were going to go with another of that with this album, I think it would have flopped pretty hard. So this is kind of them trying to branch out a bit, but in a way that I think it works really well. I guess the only song I don't even remember this being on here, but the instrumental track Last Ride In, that's probably the only thing where I'm like, why was this added in here? This is a complete slog, waste of time. But other than that, yeah, I think it's great. It's definitely worth revisiting. So let's go ahead. I'm going to put this in, should I put in A or B? I'm going to put it in A. Why not? I think this is great. I don't know what else you would really ask for this album. It holds up. It's just unfortunate that Time of Your Life kind of is what people think of with this album. So, okay, next up, we have Warning. This is where things really start to go down for the band. This is them kind of taking we're being more mature route, but not in the Nimrod sense, but in a sense of like all the excitement and fun in the band is now gone kind of thing. And I mean, there's this album wasn't very liked when it came out. It didn't really do a whole lot for them, but I feel like now in like recent years, people have been like revisiting that and thinking that this album is actually really great and underrated. I've seen that around, and I don't understand. There's really little going on in here. It's almost like their version of like a 60s album, like a, the Doors and stuff like that. There is like a couple songs in here, and of course I'm sure we all know like how Warning and Waiting are basically like almost complete rip-offs of like other like 60s songs of like that genre. But other than that, I mean, it's kind of like this is their version of like an indie movie soundtrack. That's kind of what it feels like. And it just doesn't really work for me. Most of these songs, there's a few like decent melodies that are pretty catchy. Church on Sunday isn't bad, but it's just like so much of this album is just kind of like meandering from one song to the next. And it's all kind of just the same vibe, very similar like tempo, just kind of like mid-tempo kind of stuff. Minority is a good song. I'd say it's definitely like their best song on here. But other than that, I don't know. I don't know why there's some new revisionist history on this album. I think they're even coming out, or maybe they just did come out with like the 25th anniversary of this album, and I'm like, okay, whatever. It's not for me. I'm gonna put it in D tier. Who knows? I might make a video on this album actually, because I know this was at the point where the band was actually thinking about like breaking up, and so it seems like there's a lot more going on with the behind the scenes besides just writing meanderingly boring music. But we'll see. Okay, now we have we got Shenanigans. Obviously, this is kind of like a lot of these songs are a total throwback to the super early Green Day days. It was released, I know, a couple years after Warning and a couple years before American Idiot, but I've gone back to it a couple times just like throughout the year, so I'm kind of like, yeah, it's fine. It's a B-sides album. I don't really see much of the point of it. So, I'll put it in D tier, I guess. Okay, and then things really start to change once we get to American Idiot. Obviously, this is like one of the biggest, not only like biggest comeback albums ever, but just like albums in like general, especially in like the whole century at this point. This was so huge. It really, as they had already started to kind of change their sound, with like Nimrod a bit and like Warning, this was kind of another change, but in like a much better direction. That's not to say I actually love this album. There's actually a few songs on here that I kind of don't really like. I think part of it is it kind of meanders a bit and loses me once you get to like, I don't know, some of these. Give Me Novocaine, and like it's kind of the middle here actually. All these songs I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, what's next? Letter Bomb doesn't really, they kind of start going into like the power pop route, and it doesn't really hold its weight for me. Obviously, there's a lot of like rock opera stuff that they started doing here, kind of, Billy Joe. It's really no secret that Billy Joe's like a huge fan of Queen, and so having that kind of influence in here and making this like a big concept album and like a story and stuff like that. So, but it's still really great. I mean, American Idiot was a huge, big comeback for them. It's still one of their best songs. Jesus of Suburbia, I mean, 9 minutes long, but I think it carries you through the story of the song and pretty well. So, but like I said, there's a few things in here that I'm kind of like, I don't really care. I mean, Wake Me Up When September Ends, sure, that's still fine. And St. Jimmy's a great track. They still kind of made sure to put those like punk stamps in the album, so I'm glad that they didn't go like full power pop rock opera. And there's still a lot of that like arena rock sound with like Holiday and Boulevard of Broken Dreams and stuff in there too. So it's kind of like a mix of a couple different worlds, done pretty well, but not perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and put it. Ooh, should I actually put it in the B tier? I think I am. We'll see. We'll see if anyone gets upset about that. I guess I would say Nimrod is better than American Idiot. Okay, now 21st Century Breakdown. This album I really absolutely loved when it came out, and I hadn't listened to it in quite a while, And listening to it recently, I was like, wow, this does not hold up very well. This is like, if you don't like the rock opera style of American Idiot, you're going to hate this album, because I forgot how deep into like the whole rock opera sound that they get into with this. It is, it gets pretty painful in parts. There's a lot of like, it just feels kind of pretentious, I guess is like the best way to put it. Like they're just, the band at this point is just like super impressed with themselves. And I think a lot of that shows through these. I mean, they even have all these like different acts, like it's like a whole movie and everything. Um, there's like this weird thing where they have like a lot of like half ballads, where like part of this half the song is a ballad, and then it goes into like the other half of the song where it's like way more, I don't know, fast and rocking and everything. But that really starts to wear out its welcome throughout. And then, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being too hard on it. There's a couple songs I still really like. I think American Eulogy is still my favorite song on the album. I actually think that's a really great track. It's really fun. It's catchy, and but it's like, that's like one of like the more standard actual songs. It's not like this whole huge weird story going on and putting all these other piano elements, and yeah, so overall it's really not great. I mean, East Used to Nowhere is a good song. It's kind of like the holiday single basically. And yeah, other than that, it's kind of like, I mean, it's long. I mean, this is a 70-minute album, and it doesn't really pique my interest all throughout. So I'll put it in, I don't know if I want to put it in D. I'll put it in C. There's still like enough in there where it's not like a bad album. But I think they were definitely just getting high on their own supply, basically. So, and then of course that leads us to Uno Dos Tre. And yes, I'm putting these in 3 different ones because I kind of hate all 3 of these, but one not as much as the others, I guess. I'll put Uno in C, I guess. Uno's definitely the strongest one. It's the most like Green Day album of the 3. If you see my video on that, you've already seen me talk about all this, so I won't go super deep into it all again, I guess. But it's definitely like Green Day without much of like the punk rock and more of the power pop stuff, aside from like sprinkled in like in a few different areas. So if they just came out with this, it'd be like, okay, it's fine. But it's honestly like, it feels worse. The album feels worse because of the other 2 that came after it. I'm probably going to put Dose. I'll put Dose in F. Why not? I don't think Dose is good at all. It's the worst of the 3. It has like the most like bad songs in it. And then Trey has kind of just like the most like boring songs in it. So we'll go with that. So we'll see. Maybe, like I've said before, if they ended up putting all 3 of these and squishing them down just to one like 12, 13 song album, it would probably still be like a C, because if you're going to do that, you'd also have to be adding some songs into here. And there's really not a whole lot going on in those albums either. So we'll just go with that. And then following up with Revolution Radio. This is kind of their, okay, fine, we'll make like a normal album. Again, it's like their first like just normal album since Warning, if you really think about it, because there's not this big grand rock opera stuff going on. There's not this like trifecta of write as many songs as possible and that's the story. It's like, it's just a Green Day album. And it's been a long time at this point, like 15 years basically since we had even seen that. Which is actually crazy to think about. So we'll go ahead and let me get this one up here. It's kind of listening through. It's like, it's a step up from Uno Dos Tre, but it's not like great. I guess it's kind of like, it's just kind of like more forgettable. But there's still like some decent songs into it. So I'll put it, oh shoot, I don't hate it. It's like, I almost like want to applaud them for just like trying to make a good album just of like songs and not just going so deep into all these like stories and everything. So maybe I'll be generous and I'll put it in B, I guess. We'll go with that. Okay, and then oh my gosh, okay, Father of All is gonna just be in the other F. This is like it's like after you do Revolution Radio and you're kind of like, okay, cool, yeah, Green Day's like kind of back, I guess. Like they're not taking themselves so seriously. This album, like they start checking into like full on boomer mode basically. And yeah, it's really not for me. I've like listened through it, I think like once all the way through ever. And I don't know what's going on. The whole, like I said, that the way they advertised it is trying to be like this gritty, unpolished rock album. I don't think did them any favors at all. So yeah, F tier along with Dose. Those are gonna be the only F tier ones. I'd say Saviors is actually pretty decent. I don't hate Saviors, and I think mainly because I don't know what else you would really expect Green Day to do at this point. They've I mean, they've been around so long now. They've kind of transferred themselves into like just legacy artists at this point. So if they put out an album that's like pretty good, then there's some enjoyable songs into it. I mean, that's a lot better than it could be. Look Ma No Brains is really good. I mean, The American Dream is Killing Me is kind of annoying, but that's kind of just them in politics. They think they're like the political saviors of the world, I guess. But yeah, Bobby saw. Yeah, I mean, some of these dilemmas like pretty good. It's decent. I think it's them kind of trying to just get back to the spirit of Green Day, and I think it works out pretty well. So I'll go ahead and put it in B. So we'll go ahead and end this here. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think I don't know if I would really move anything else. You know what? I'm gonna put American Idiot in A. It's got some like low points, but I think them being able to accomplish everything they did with it and how it just like was a huge big comeback for them, and it was like the perfect album at the perfect time with like the Bush administration, the Iraq War, and I think they, no pun intended, I guess, capitalized on it really well. And so even though it's not, there's like a few songs I could do without, I'll put it in like the low A, so it's like the A minus. So okay, that's where we're gonna end it, I think. Yeah, let me know what you guys think, and yeah, see you guys next time.